Hello, hello. So my name is Reedik. I work at Ridango. We built these lovely orange boxes that you have seen in buses around Tallinn and Tartu. We also write all the software that goes with it. So everything that happens after you validate your card. So today my subject is building Angular web applications in a monorepository. How many Angular developers we have here? Raise your hand. 1, 2, maybe. Okay, 3. Nice. Don't worry, it's not really Angular specific. It's not even web application specific. It's more about monorepos in general, but my experience is with Angular. So that's that. So first of all, the problem that we are trying to solve is that we have multiple applications, and there's something that all of these applications want to use. Like the last talk we had is they want to have some sort of like a UI framework or library that each of these applications then wants to consume, and let's say everyone wants a similar button on their website. So that's a pretty common problem, at least in my experience. So the classical way to solve it is something like this. You have a library, that's a Git repository. In between, you have NPM, and then you have a number of other Git repositories that consume this library from that NPM repository. This is how you would consume all your open source stuff if you write front-end code or TypeScript, JavaScript, React, whatever. Now, the solution that I propose and that we use is this. Everything is inside a big Git repository. That's why it's called a monorepository. It's a single repository that contains all the stuff that you need. This little logo at the bottom there is the logo of NX, which is the tool that enables this. So to give you an example of how it looks like in actual code, is that you have this little nice folder structure. You have your 3 little apps there, and your little libraries there, and everything else that goes inside a repository, usually, inside an Angular repository, at least. And then inside the code, you just use them as you would use any other NPM package. Also, the things that are shared here are like the package.json. All the other packages that you use are also shared between these applications. Your VS Code configuration, your prettier configuration. NX has its own little JSON file that helps manage all of this. Plus a bunch of other stuff that didn't fit on the screen here. So this is the sort of thing I'm talking about. If you get any questions in the meantime, you can use this app, write those questions there, and we can take a look at those later. So a little bit about this NX monorepository, which is basically, this is a screenshot from their website. It's basically a command line interface tool that helps you reduce some of the copy-paste. So let's say you want to create a new application or run tests for all the affected applications or do whatever stuff they have there. I haven't even used all of it. It helps you do that, so you don't have to manually do it. But all of that you can see from their website. Now let's get to the experience that we have. No pictures, just text. Now the benefits of a monorepo, in my opinion, there are many, but the main 3 are, the first of all is the developers who develop the applications inside the monorepository. They don't really have to do all the plumbing that usually goes into setting up a new repository. So you usually have to download your packages, make them work, do some TypeScript stuff there, set up some sort of a testing examples. Maybe you have storybook there. With the monorepo, this is done for you, or if you have to do it, it's done before you. So you just have to put your application inside there, and you can deal with the application. The plumbing is already done for you. It's basically, I would call it like a repository as a service. You just move your stuff in there, and everything's been taken care of you. The second thing is that everyone who lives inside that monorepo is forced to use the latest or the same latest version of whatever you have in those package.json files. This is maybe a bit Angular specific because Angular versions tend to update quite often. Often than they used to. And the problem that we had was we had multiple repositories with multiple versions of Angular. Some teams update their stuff a bit more vigorously, others don't. And when we try to write a library that all of them then can use, we run into a problem that, these guys are way behind, they need to update their stuff first in order for our little library to actually work there. With a monorepo, everyone has to use the latest version, or whatever version is, they decide is the best one to use. So you basically ignore all these problems of having different projects with different versions of different things and so on and so on. It makes some things harder, but it makes a lot of things easier. Third thing is changing and maintaining this common library stuff is a lot easier. The main reason is that because everything lives inside one big repository, if you do change something in the library and you have to change something in these applications, you end up with a giant, basically, pull request that has all the changes. It has changes to the library and changes to all these applications. So once the pull request gets done, the code runs to your CI/CD. All the applications can then deploy their stuff and not having to synchronize all these releases in this sort of the old school NPM way. Is that if you made a breaking change or something that required your applications to change their code, you had to synchronize all your releases. Otherwise, you might, something might change. The other application kind of falls behind. They cannot deploy before this library is updated. So this basically should take care of all of these problems. Again, it makes the refactoring a bit bigger because you end up with a bigger pull request. But once you get that done, the actual releasing and that stuff is a lot quicker. Now, our specific experience with coming up with the monorepo was that when we started with it, we didn't quite know what to do with it. We knew we wanted a monorepository, but we didn't know what should these libraries be that we actually want to share. So the first thing that we wanted to do, or some people wanted to do, some people didn't want to do, was put as much stuff in this common part of the monorepo as possible. So the actual application code will be super dry. So you could get the junior, you would basically say, here, everything is in this common stuff, you just put it together and don't think about it. This didn't really work because if you just write code, and a lot of it, but you don't have actually time to maintain, test, and document it, it becomes more of a burden than it becomes helpful. So let's say I do some sort of, let's say a table a common table code that we use, but it's not documented, tested, or maintained well. It takes more time for the developer to actually figure out how to use that common table stuff than it will actually be to just take some sort of Angular material table, read the documentation, and use it as it is. So what we decided was that, first of all, is we only share the code that we actually see is worth sharing, that actually more than one application uses. And also the requirement is that it has to be tested, documented, and maintained. So if some application developer comes and says, look, the thing you did, I don't understand it, it's the library maintainer's responsibility to actually either document it well or explain it. So we actually ended up with very little stuff in the common code. But it's the 80-20 rule is that 20% of the stuff covers 80% of the use cases. So that's what we did. The second part is that at first the plan was that all the applications that live inside this monorepository would also own the what's it called? It's all hose in English, I don't know. Everyone owns the monorepo. So it will sort of be like everyone gets together, decides what to do. This team does this little bit, then the other team does the other bit, which also didn't work because if everyone is responsible, no one is responsible. So that ended fast. We decided to put a dedicated team. This team is currently only one person, that's me. We used to have 2 guys, but basically this team does all this plumbing or this dirty work of the monorepo. If there are packages that need to be updated, I do it, or we used to do it together. If there is a library that has a bug, I usually go into it and get it fixed. So there's someone who's responsible for the monorepo, let's say sort of like a foundation or scaffolding, so that the application developers can focus on their job, do the little applications, and they don't have to think about updating dependencies and making sure the prettier is up to date and latest version and so on. What we actually did was put VS Code and IntelliJ configurations inside the Git repo. So if a new developer comes, he or she doesn't really have to do anything. Just get on with coding. And even if you want to do a new project, you just run a few commands. You have a new application running inside the monorepo, and you can get started. I had an experience with a colleague, and he was like, I tried your stuff. I got it working in like 3 hours. Yeah, it's really great. I'm like, thanks. And the last part is, this is more maybe Angular specific, but you really have to keep focusing on, keep updating your dependencies frequently. By frequently, I guess I mean like once a month, maybe once every 2 months. Because once you fall behind updating your dependencies, it's really hard to catch back up. It's like not fixing your car for 2 years, see what happens. So currently we try to update it once a month, once every 2 months. And sometimes these dependency updates can take a long time, because we tried updating from Angular 12 to Angular 13. It took about a month, just because I guess we jumped the ship too soon. It just came out. We were like, yes, let's use it. But a lot of these libraries that we also used weren't Angular 13 ready. So we made the pull request. We had 2 libraries that we waited on so that they could become Angular 13 compliant, or whatever it's called, to support it. So it actually took like, 3 weeks to actually get the pull request and push it live. So this is sort of, the thing I'm trying to sell you. All in all, I think monorepos, I think they're the future. Maybe not for everyone, but I think even in languages like Java and I don't know, whatever out there is, there could be a benefit of having a monorepo. And I think what a lot of people fear when I mention a monorepo is they think it becomes sort of a monolithic application where everyone sort of, like it usually happens, it becomes a big bloated mess. And I think today that's not true. If you sort of try to follow these advices that I gave you, is sort of, have some sort of a structure around it. And this NX does really help it because it kind of, it gives you the structure for you. So you don't have to come up with it. And it really does solve a lot of these problems that used to be hard to solve. I mean, maintaining a versioned NPM package is not cheap, it's not easy, and it's not always rewarding also. So I guess that's it from my side. I see that I have 13 minutes left. If anyone has questions, I'll be glad to answer them.